Sure. Michael Gore?
Are you recording?
Oh, nope. Thanks for the reminder.
No problem.
Recording in progress.
Okay, good evening, everyone. This is Planning Board for September 11th, 2024. Pam, can you take attendance, please?
Sure. Michael Gore?
Here.
James Barr?
Here.
Austin Groner? I do not see him. Looks like he's absent. Robert Romer?
Here.
Eric Nyland?
Here.
And Michael Lau.
Here.
First item on the agenda this evening is the long-awaited presentation from the Master Plan Steering Committee. So we're excited to have, I think, some members of the Master Plan Committee here tonight. Bob, do you want to just go ahead? I think you guys have got a slide deck for
We've got a
us.
presentation.
Great.
And we do have members of the master plan here. Sharon, Stasha, Ken. Brian is hiding behind. Yeah, he's here. So let me start out before I put up a presentation. And if you can give me access, Pamela, that would be nice. Okay.
Do you want to present it yourself?
Okay, no, that's fine.
Okay.
I just wanted to make some comments before we got into it per se.
Absolutely. Okay.
As you said, Mike, it's been a long time coming. Actually, it's been 4 years and 10 months, almost to the day. Originally, it was supposed to be a 2-year program. Started out with 11 members, appointed by the selectmen on November 19th, 2019. We added 2 interns, which were a great addition. Megan Irvin and Abby Ayotte from the Neshoba Regional High School, the DECA organization. And we had at that point 9 tireless volunteers. We've had in the process of this almost 5-year process, 4 town planners. Started with Erica, who I believe everybody knows. Valerie, who moved off to another position in Stowe. Todd Miller, and then finally the person who got us across the finish line, Pam Harden. We've had actually 2 consultants. We initially had a technical assistance program from MAPC, and they helped us for a very short period of time in putting together the first forum. And then, of course, our primary consultant over the last 18 months has been BSC Group. I give Olivia Knightley a great deal of credit for the work that she did under the supervision of Heather Gould, and she unfortunately left a couple of months before the end of the program, and Jeff Bragg took over. And then, of course, throughout all of this, we had COVID. Had a lot of input and cooperation from town departments, and a lot of review. And I might add, although it's not in the presentation per se, in addition to standing on the shoulders of the 2006 master plan, there have been a number of plans and programs that have been developed and research that's gone on and recommendations that have been made in other areas. MVP being an example, housing production plan, traffic plans, economic downtown studies, et cetera. So in addition to having a substantial amount of input from the original plan, we have a lot of parallel input from other things. Particular kudos, Brian, despite the fact that he defected to the select board. It was great to have you, and he kept us on track and provided Valium for my insanity. And Ken True. Ken is an enormous mainstay of this whole operation. Ken is the volunteer secretary who took copious and very accurate notes for every single meeting that we had. So we have minutes of all of those. In addition to that, Ken is a meticulous reader and read everything that was produced and made a lot of suggestions and corrections. So with that, why don't we move on? Pam, if you can put up the first slide, I'd appreciate it. Okay, quickly moving to the next one. Okay, just a very brief summary of what we have done. As I said, the committee was appointed in November 2019. We did 2 public surveys. It was kind of interesting that in the same program, we had to do a second one because so much time had lapsed and COVID, we thought, would have a significant impact. We
sorry.
did, I'm sorry,
Sorry, I must
I'll talk faster. We had a couple of public forums, very similar format, broadcast those. BSC Consulting was brought in to assist us, and that was a recommendation originally, simply because it didn't look like we were going to make it, and I concur with that. Had we not had them, we would be still working on this, and we completed the plan pretty much in June. Pam, if you can move on. The current master plan steering committee, as I mentioned, consists of these folks. Sharon and Stacia are on. I don't believe Ed is. Mary Chumo, Kia, and Pani. All of them initially working on specific topical areas. And then, of course, we had the consultants services. Next one, please. The purpose of the plan, I guess you can start by saying you really can't figure out how we need to go where we want to go unless we understand where we are. So an enormous amount of it was understanding existing conditions. And then at a very high level, looking at the target from 100,000 feet, defining a vision of the future. And that took a fair amount of discussion, some changes, substantial amount of input from the public in the surveys and the forums, and then coordinate town actions. Now, this is something that is a theme throughout this whole thing, that initially we started off somewhat compartmentalized in our studies of the various topical areas and realized very quickly that we really couldn't do that. There was so much interrelationship and need for collaboration and cooperation that became a very important part of it. Of course, the public involvement is required and just simply makes good sense if you're putting together a plan for the town, for the residents, and for the public. It does satisfy the state mandate. There is a mandate that requires that towns have a master plan. And last but absolutely not least, without it, it substantially reduces our grant eligibility. So, Pam. A lot of things happened from the 2006 plan. If you go back to the very, very detailed implementation plan, as well as the higher level priorities, you will see that there were a number of very successful things that happened. And these just simply lay out those complete streets, is something that we will continue to use and has a lot to do with our grants. Various elements of planning with accessory apartment bylaw, the housing production plan, and the creation of the Affordable Housing Trust. Among other things, incidentally, that aren't listed here were the library enhancement, the town common, et cetera, that actually occurred after really the 2006 plan, but were addressed both by the OSRP and the town plan. Things that are critically important to the master plan, obviously, are population growth. And that was a bit of a challenge, and that was a concern as a result of COVID. But I think we're still reasonably happy with the projections and you'll see MAPC made. The housing needs, Stacia is a passionate person, along with Brian, on this. We really don't have, as you can see by the statistics, the necessary sustainable and affordable housing solutions that the town really needs in order to obtain its overall vision and objectives. And then, of course, maintaining the character of the town in a broad sense, the agricultural town, both in terms of the visibility and scenic importance of it, as well as the very important economic element of it. Other themes, we all know about traffic and mobility, most importantly road traffic, but certainly as we go into complete streets and into our trail system, it's critically important that we integrate all of that into our overall traffic and mobility, and not just have paths and sidewalks, but appropriate paths and sidewalks. And then something that has been worked on in parallel for quite some time is the idea of a resilient future for Bolton. And that's addressed specifically prior to the completion of this plan in the MVP, the Apple Country program, et cetera. So that's another very important theme of the plan. Okay. A lot of, very brief existing conditions. Residentially developed land is a very substantial portion of the town now. Conservation land actually is quite good. And on top of that is conservation restrictions and 61A land for our agriculture and forest land, and then recreation land per se. Total population now, 5,500 thereabouts. Still reasonably low population density, and a median age of 42 years, which is not bad at all. However, we will see that is moving up at, I wouldn't say an alarming rate, since I'm part of it, as we all are, but it's something that we need to take into consideration for a number of issues. Housing, little short of 2,000 houses. Single family homes, 92%, big issue there. Subsidized housing is relatively small. 2 or more family homes, relatively small. Owner occupied is something I think we can be pretty proud of, that we do have a lot of people who own their own homes. However, we wanted to address the issue of economically viable homes, affordable homes. And the median value right now of existing owner-occupied housing is getting up close to $750,000. Okay. As I mentioned, the MAPC Bolton population protection is the one that we think that we're most confident about. There are a couple of others, most notably the UMass Donahue projection, which I think we all agree is not appropriate at this point. It predicts things that we know aren't going to happen. Okay, next. The survey results. Not significantly different, frankly, from the surveys that we did back in the early 2000s. Rural nature, importance of conservation land and outdoors, good school system, and a sense of community and people. That last bullet we can talk about a little bit later in terms of priorities for a community center, which you see to your right. Trash removal was important, although the community center is the transfer station. Upgrading town facilities, which has become very, very apparent, and some of the issues that need to be addressed in terms of storage for records and records management, and then finally commuter options. The overall topics, the way it's broken up is fairly traditional. As you can see here, land use, housing is becoming and is very important. Economic development in Bolton, particularly natural, cultural, historic resources, of which we have many, and preservation thereof is very important, as is open space and recreation. Municipal services and facilities, transportation, climate resiliency, and then finally implementation. Now, a couple of others that we had addressed were water and sewer, which we rolled into municipal services. And then we talked initially about addressing schools, but concluded that the school systems, the three towns together had formed a strategic plan, and that to some degree informed some of the stuff that we did. Okay. Land use recommendations, and we'll go through these. These are the various topics and the high level recommendations that came out of those. Vacant and underutilized parcels, and looking at them in terms of what they should be in the future development within the commercial and the industrial area, as well as the mixed use village overlay district, as we can get that going. We had a great deal of discussion about smaller lot houses and open space residential design. A couple of months ago, we had Randall Arendt here, and I believe everybody on the planning board and a number of other people attended both his lecture and his little charrette-like workshop. And then continued maintenance. As they say, if you build it, you got to maintain it, and that's critically important. Okay. Housing recommendations, as I've said, we've got to look at diversity for both the older sector of our population and for young families with moderate to low income levels. Diversify housing, but at the same time, maintain local character and growth trajectory. And that was very much the topic of the discussion and workshop that Randall Arendt had. And then multi-generational affordable living options, which is actually a very traditional New England tradition. Okay, economic development. The trick there is, and we believe that it was good to have it, but align it with the town's character. And that seems to have worked quite well to date, but it needs to be carefully thought out and planned as we move into the future. There's been a concern, and has for a long time, about amenities and destinations that complement existing businesses and frankly promote them. Agricultural to tourism, it's very important to do that over and above just having farm stands, which in themselves are important, but to encourage that as part of tourism and recreation. And then make sure that we have a streamlined approach to business development, which has been a concern of people who have tried, in some cases succeeded, in some cases failed, to establish businesses and expansion of businesses here, and then mixed use opportunities, but again, in the context of the character of the town. Okay. I'd mentioned preserving local historic resources under a natural culture and historic resource recommendations. There are a lot of them here. In order to maintain the character of the town, they need to be preserved. Recommended adopting the Community Preservation Act, CPA. It's been shot down twice, but we've seen our surrounding towns have been very successful in the money that they've gotten from the CPAs. So that's something we need to look at. Digitizing, and that's not just for natural culture and historic resources, that's for the town management itself. As we look at the amount of hard copy floating around the town and the organization and ability to retrieve them and use them, that becomes very important. And protect existing water resources, which also ties into the overall environmental aspects and climate considerations. And then make sure that we are thoughtful about land clearing. We've seen a couple of cases recently that are not addressed under our existing bylaws or subdivision regulations that we need to look at in order to maintain the character and the environment. Next. Open space. Again, one of the ways to gain funding for open space is to make sure that you have a document that prioritizes that. And the open space and recreation plan OSRP does that and has used them in the past. We've discussed the CPA. Again, continue pursuing grants. We've seen grant writing being very productive. Case in point, the Taggart property. Accessibility. In some cases, we really don't have the access and the condition of parks and trails that we need. And look at a recreational needs assessment. And that includes consideration of recreational needs under a community center. And then take a look at identifying additional recreational opportunities with property owners in a public-private partnership and relationship. Next. Municipal services. Again, that was a hot topic, and I think the town staff and department heads will tell you that they're working hard to do what they can with what they have, but it clearly could be improved in a number of ways. The assessment that was done 2 years ago was very helpful in identifying those, and the town has put together a priority and a timetable for doing that, and are doing it, but that needs to continue. Again, grant writing. I think there is a case to get a grant writer to put together at least the basis for grants with particular departments focusing on their area and the appropriate grant. Emergency preparedness planning. Not a lot is known by your average person about that. There is a plan in place, but it needs to coordinate with the townsfolk to make it more workable. Maintain wells, that's clearly very important. We can talk in the next one about a future public water supply source. That may very well become very, very important in the future, and we need to plan for that. And there are a couple of pretty significant aquifers in Bolton that are potentially useful for that. And then look at public water and a sewer district. That's a long-term effort, but it's very much worthwhile, as Harvard discovered, in looking at it reasonably early and start developing an overall assessment and plan. Next, transportation. Yeah, alleviate traffic congestion, as those of us who live on 117 know, and improve circulation, particularly with respect to tributary streets and roads coming into primarily 117, but obviously 495 has an enormous amount to do that. Multimodal transportation facilities. We've talked about options to do that, to get people moving out of town. Incidentally, as a result of transportation primarily, Bolton regretfully was identified by the New York Times as, in a California detailed survey, to be one of the least green towns in the vicinity. And it's primarily due to people having to commute long distances using their individual cars. That covers the next one as well, with public transportation and getting that not only within the town and to neighboring towns, but to public transportation facilities. Roadway, and then climate conscious roadway maintenance practice. That includes everything for the potential to contamination as a result of de-icing in the winter, as well as runoff of, and that's changing now, of sand into our waterways. Next. Climate considerations, and this goes back to what I said right in the beginning. Climate is really a collaborative effort among virtually all of the recommended actions and topics in the overall recommendations of the master plan. Getting our carbon footprint down. That's right now the Commonwealth has a goal of net zero emissions. That's going to be really tough, particularly when it comes to transportation, heating, cooling. Impervious surface, again, that is something where we need to deal with runoff and where that runoff is going, and preferably any kind of precipitation needs to go down where it lands. And then finally, under the MVP, protect and deal with climate resilience, in addition to trying to prevent climate change, as we indicated earlier. Okay, next. The implementation matrix. Basically, the master plan provides an enormous amount of background, rationale, existing conditions, and a vision. The implementation matrix is the guide that is fairly specific and provides what needs to actually happen. I underscore, although it's not bolded, that it is a flexible guide. This is not something that this group came up with and it's cast in concrete. It is absolutely not. We change, the town changes, our environment changes, and therefore the implementation matrix must change as well as is appropriate. It defines schedules and priorities for each element. And as I said, it changes over time. And again, the one thing that we haven't talked about is the real aspect of finance and what can move forward. And that is something that is going to be very, very important as we identify the priorities. There's not an open checkbook here. They have to be balanced with the availability of funding and the implication of both fund grants as well as our own tax base. And then the implementation will change. And one thing you'll see in the implementation matrix is no single group, and about 90% of it, is responsible for any single element of it. It's a collaborative approach, and it needs to work collaboratively. Okay, if you want to go on to an example, and you can see here, we have the high priority one, and we've indicated the priority in the overall action plan. But this, you can see, and just in this particular case, we have either 2, 4, and 5 individual organizations that are responsible and key partners in together implementing these. And it's critical as an outcome of this plan is that we proselytize the overall implementation matrix and make sure everybody understands, agrees, and is part of implementing it. And if they can think of better ways or more appropriate partners, that needs to be incorporated as well. So this is just one tiny section of a very, very large implementation matrix, which I would urge everybody to walk through to get a sense of it. In a number of cases, gentlemen, the planning board is up front, but being first doesn't necessarily mean you're supposed to be driving it. Next. Okay, the high priority recommendations out of the narrative and the implementation plan. Again, in accordance with the input that we've received in both our forums as well as our surveys, maintaining the agricultural and rural characteristics. There are a lot of things we can do, but that needs always to be in our mind, not necessarily in the back of our mind. Housing diversity is critical. We've talked about that, and it is possible to have housing diversity, have more housing for more people, while at the same time preserving open space. Those are not contradictory if it's done properly. Economic development opportunities, again, with an interest in the rural and agricultural development. Sure would be nice to get the Ag Commission back in business. Look at the recreational facilities, which are pretty tight now. I have to give Parks and Rec a lot of credit for doing a lot of balancing of a lot of activities going on. And then in all of this, account for climate change in every aspect, including, for that matter, the DPW with its roads and culverts. And then, I hate to say this, no, I don't. The community center, I think that's something that I have heard discussed as a critical action for the last 40 years. Apparently, it's needs to be more critical. Improvements to town buildings, and then the CPA. And again, the CPA is not going to be as cost effective as it was a while ago, but it still is. So that's, we really need to follow up on that and do some analysis of it. Okay, Pam? Okay, the next steps. Once we have general concurrence from the planning board, off we go to the select board. Make sure that we have agreement on the long-term and the short-term priority goals. And again, it's a collaboration. This is not some top-down organization driving it or defining who are the people to do it. It needs to be a collaborative effort, and generally with a lead organization, whether it's a committee, a board, a department, or an outside private organization working with us. Develop plans. That's one of the things, and I get back to the community center. It's great to whine about not having a community center. It's much better to spend your time putting together a plan and a team to address it. Take a look at where we are and what we need to do, both in terms of our progress and how we need to change our priorities in the implementation plan. And then update it eventually completely at the 10-year anniversary. Pam?
That's it.
Okay. Okay. I'll stop.
But I mean, this is terrific. Thank you so much. I mean, we've been seeing drafts of these as you guys have been working really hard over the years. So there's definitely nothing that's a big surprise in there. I think what at least myself and I'll speak for the rest of the planning board, is that we're looking for input from you guys on what sorts of bylaw amendments you want to see come out of this, and that priority matrix I think will be really key in helping us kind of figure out where to attack first and what's most feasible. So again, kudos to you and the whole team. It's great.
Well, it has been a great team, and it has been a very long process with some twists and turns and other things. But thanks to the team, they've stood there and worked hard and made it happen. And I do recommend. I mean, it takes a lot of reading, but it's very important to go through the implementation plan. And there are a lot of work that was done on existing conditions. That's another thing that I think people who think they know a lot about Bolton will discover that they don't know quite as much as they really think they do when they read the existing conditions.
Yeah, I also want to congratulate oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
I was going to say, just want to congratulate the whole master plan steering committee team. I mean, I've been looking through it just in the past few days, planning for this meeting, and just looking, thinking everything I came up with. I'm like, well, what about this? And yeah, I could find it in there. The document is just expansive and tons of information. I mean, the work that you put into it is clearly evident. So, just an amazing job by your group.
And
Bob,
Pam has just put up the list of it. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Bob.
No, one of the things that is, I think, very important is to take a look at the maps. The maps in the narrative are small and difficult to see, but if you look at the actual maps themselves, they're very, very informative.
Great. Yeah, everyone should do that. Now, this is a link off of the Town of Bolton webpage under the Your Government and the Master Plan Steering Committee page, which has a lot of great info that I've been looking through. So Bob, you mentioned that your next steps are you're going to present to select board, and then where do you see coming back to us and sort of where we go from there?
Fairly soon.
Okay.
We've
Um,
already been doing it, right?
Yeah, we really have. I mean, our list of to-dos, I think, reflect the high priority items that are particularly attuned to planning, economic development, and overall residential development, which is a very, very critical thing that if we don't get our arms around, could cause the town to look quite different than it currently does.
What, yeah, going through the existing conditions, like you said, it was very interesting. I saw that you had a lot of comparisons to like the region, like Worcester County, different counties. But like maybe I missed it, is like comparable towns, like comparing like those numbers, like how much undeveloped, how much land is undeveloped, different percentages of preservation land, like comparing it to say Harvard or, surrounding similar towns. Like, are there charts like that, or did you focus more on like the county region?
More in the county and region, I think primarily because it's difficult to do an apples to apples comparison. I think Harvard and Worcester County are comparable, but when you go south or east, things change dramatically.
Right.
So it's hard to do a comparison.
Yeah.
And we're in an odd position. I mean, being on 495, kind
Right.
of half Middlesex, half Worcester.
But also being along 495 and not being very developed.
No, yeah, and that's that's an attraction unto itself.
Right.
But MAPC has been doing a pretty good job in looking at the corridor.
Pam, do we as a board need to vote on this at some point to adopt it, or does that come later on?
Yeah, under Mass General Law, you have the planning board actually has the authority to adopt the master plan on behalf of the town. You can certainly take some time and go through some documents. There are some updates to the maps that we're working on with the consultant. They are revising those, and they're minor updates, but they're important. So we'll be uploading those to reflect some certain changes. For instance, there were a couple parcels that were marked as developable, and they had recent conservation restrictions put on them. So they're amending those parcels, and we'll get those uploaded. But like we said, it is a kind of a fluid document. So we are using it to work on, and we want to update things as we go through the plan and keep notes on what types of things are feasible and certain statistics as things change, or circumstances of the town as things move along in the future. So eventually it would be good to get your blessing, and then we forward it along to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities just for their records. So that will go on record that we have an adopted master plan, and when we apply for grants, they can confirm that the document does exist and was approved by the board. So I would probably suggest we bring it to the select board, have them review it, and the new town administrator has already forwarded the implementation table to various departments within the town. And then we can circle back to you for an official vote and forward it off to the state.
Okay, that sounds great. I know there's a ton of detail in here. Tonight, I don't think we really want to be going piece by piece through any of this. We'd be here forever. But if anyone on the board has questions for anyone on the master planning committee, or if anyone in the audience has questions in general, we will take a few of those right now.
Well, I do have a few questions, but I don't know if you want to weigh down the meeting with that.
I mean, keep them high level.
Yeah.
Next steps, that sort of stuff. Not just, oh, hey, why didn't you include this, or why didn't you include
Yeah.
that?
So those are my questions. So I think I'll just email them to the master plan.
Yeah, I think it's if members of the board can kind of review the document, see what add your questions, things like that. That's probably the best way to consolidate all of our feedback.
Yeah, I think
in
so.
one spot.
Yeah, maybe we should create a shared document or something where we can list
So
some
what-
Yeah,
questions. So,
yeah.
this has been on your agenda throughout the whole process, so all
Yeah.
the chapters have been forwarded to you for
Yeah.
review, as well as
Yeah.
the implementation table throughout
Yeah.
the year, so.
Yep.
I think we welcome your questions, but, like incorporating a whole new topic or something like that probably isn't feasible at this point.
That wasn't the scope of my
Oh, okay,
questions.
okay.
Yeah. It was more just like maybe I was missing something, or just, just clarification questions. I didn't have you're missing section, a section.
Yeah, 234 pages, you might miss something.
No, like I said, I was like, like I was looking for, what about this? No, nope, it's there. What about that? Nope, it's there. So everything's there.
Right.
Okay. So I think, again, the board should review that. Bob, that was a great summary. Pam, I didn't see that slide deck anywhere in here. I don't know if that's linked off the master plan website, but I do like the summary version of that. It gives a nice concise version to people that are interested in what the committee's done,
Yeah,
rather
I think
than
I think you should share that on like social medias, and put a I think
We
that's a
wanted to
great
see how
summary.
this went first, and that we'll distribute it.
That's great. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think, present to the select board next, and then and just, keep constant contact with us about priorities and what the next steps are. Okay, thank you, everyone. Appreciate you joining in for this. The next item of business tonight is the site plan review for the new high school, 12 Green Road. So Pam, I believe we got comments on the review back from Haley Ward. Nothing crazy. You had a few additional feedback items for them. So you want to just kind of maybe, Pam, give an overview of what Haley Ward did and sort of what their any concerns they had were.
Sure. Bethany was the reviewing engineer, and she is on the call. So,
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Bethany. She's from Haley Ward, and the scope of work entailed reviewing the site plan, including reviewing the stormwater calcs, the plan for site plan compliance with their zoning bylaws, and also reviewing the traffic report, which was submitted in, I think, August 28th. So they reviewed those documents and provided the summary that was distributed to the board and the applicant. And I can let Bethany speak a little more on her letter if she'd like.
Sure. So I can go through each item, or I can just hit on the ones that I think I can just give a summary of it, if that's all right with the board.
That'd be great.
Okay. So in the stormwater report, most of it is just a few missing items from the long-term pollution prevention plan and construction period pollution prevention plan. Everything else looked good stormwater wise. In the site plan, we just had some questions confirming things like increased wastewater flows, fire protection and water flow requirements, adding site signage to the plans. A big one was just where the refuse and waste disposal location is going to be. I didn't see anything about that on the plan. A couple of just small things like the van accessible parking space dimensions weren't labeled, or if they were, we didn't, see them. The sign in front of the school, I believe it's an LED sign right now. But the plans don't really say anything about it. It just says it's called out as outside of the contract. So it's not clear if it's going to be replaced or with a different sign or what that plan is. The trees in the parking areas, I think that was needed a little bit more detail to comply precisely with the bylaws. We suggested that bicycle parking be provided. We didn't see that called out anywhere on the plan. We also recommend that lighting be shown on the plans. And then I think we had a comment in here about the sidewalk. Sorry, Pam, I'm kind of skipping around.
Yeah, that's okay.
Um, comment number 6. We just saw that there was only a certain section of sidewalk that looks like it was going to be replaced. So we just had questions about the intent of providing a sidewalk that crosses like the whole frontage of the high school and continues up Green Street. Then on to the traffic report. It looked like the level of information and build out that they used for the assumptions was appropriate. There's some questions in here about the level of service in the intersection and whether or not you've considered shifting students to the bus travel from the self park and parent drop off lanes to decrease traffic going into the school. There was also a very high number of vehicles in the analysis going fast, quite fast in front of the school. So it was just a question whether or not that was an anomaly or if that is like the typical speed. We also had questions about the bus only lanes that were called out for exiting onto Main Street and Green Street, whether or not those are going to be bus only for fixed hours. I think we had questions about what the sequence was and schedule for the traffic circle, whether or not that was planned to be completed at the same time that the new school was completed. So it would be an entirely new traffic pattern, or if there was some kind of interim plan that would be needed for that construction, if the road construction was going to happen after the school replacement. We also had a question about whether or not the pedestrian crossing signs that stop traffic, whether or not those delays were included in the traffic analysis. And I think the other question that we had was whether or not an interim parking plan is being provided. And I think that there was some, like, I saw the existing parking plan and the proposed parking plan, but it wasn't clear to me what the interim parking plan is going to be if the school is in session during the construction. So maybe that's something I missed in the plans online. Pam said that it was on there, but I didn't have an opportunity to look into it before we met today. And that summarizes all of our comments, really. Are there any in particular that caught your eye that you would like more of an explanation on?
So I'll go first, and then Pam can kind of go. I mean, I think anything. So the plan for the rotary replacement. I mean, that's a project that's been delayed, consistently. There was some talk about it starting in the fall, but Pam, I don't think that's the case now. So most likely that starts in the spring. So
Okay.
that project will be going on, at the same time as the high school construction.
Mhm.
So I mean, I think, both the high school team and whoever is doing the construction work on the roundabout are probably going to have to work together on what things look like when that traffic is, or when that work is being done, because I think that's going to be probably a disaster, and I'm sure they're going to have to switch entrances around and things as that work is happening. But that's a little bit TBD right now, and I think that rotary will drastically impact a lot of things on 117 once it's complete. So your question about do people really go 55 down that stretch of road? Yes. Yes, they do. And so, a big hope with that rotary is that'll slow down a lot of the traffic around there. The pedestrian lighted walkway hopefully, takes that into account, and kids aren't trying to cross when cars are going 55 miles an hour. So a lot of those things I think are a little bit up in the air right now until we get some closer to that rotary project starting. Those were kind of my main comments, but Pam, I don't know if you had stuff you wanted to discuss?
No, just for the Rotary project, the bids are due in early October. We doubt that the construction crews will mobilize for the month or two that's remaining in the construction season. And we have been in close communications with the consultants that are working and the construction crew in the high school, and we will probably reconvene meetings just to make sure we coordinate the construction activities that are going along 117 and the high school to ensure access remains open, and certainly public safety issues are satisfied, as well as the things that we can do to try and alleviate the traffic congestion that may occur during all the construction.
Related to that, the question about the sidewalk. So I don't believe there's an existing sidewalk there now in
No,
front of the high school.
There is sidewalk on the site plans along Main Street. That was actually part of the coordination with the school and the town. DPW was working with them when they were doing the design plans. There is not a connection along Green Street. It kind of goes off from the rotary and doesn't connect to the driveway. I wasn't sure if that was a specific area that she was referring to. It was a question I posed just last week.
The walks along the Main Street are in the Rotary project.
As in the Rotary project is going to take care of those.
Yes.
And where does that sidewalk start and end?
It starts at the driveway near the tennis courts at the west side and continues across along Main Street, crossing at the Rotary, and then crossing the street to the other side.
And ends at the west driveway to the school, which is pretty much where the existing driveway is.
Yeah.
So it does go the length of Main Street then?
Yeah. Yes.
Pretty
Okay.
much.
Or sorry, at least until the west driveway.
It doesn't go up Green Street at all. It crosses at the Rotary at that intersection, and then the sidewalk jumps across the street.
Okay, gotcha. So not up
Yeah.
on Green Road.
No, it's
Correct.
It's not part of our project. We've had multiple meetings with Mr. Heglin to coordinate the scope between both of our projects. As Ms. Harding noted, it has been delayed. It was supposed to start 2 summers ago in 2023, and it didn't, and it's going out to bid now. We expect that it will be, worked on in the spring. Our contractor for the high school project, Consigli Construction, has been in those coordination meetings with us, with the DPW director to coordinate, and their engineer to coordinate all that stuff. And we have coordinated the locations where we have to provide parts of the work that are not included in their plan. And the reason they're not included in their plan is because when we're reconstructing the driveway as part of our project to go out to Main Street and out to the Rotary, those areas of curbing would have to be ripped up, and they'll only be a year old. So we've decided that at some point the new curbing and sidewalk would stop just before the curb cut that crosses the driveway, and that we would construct as part of the high school project that the rest of that sidewalk to the curb cut, including the curbing going up the driveway, just so it doesn't have to be redone after it's been brand new.
Okay.
So we have numerous discussions with the DPW about coordinating this work.
And we continue to have meetings with them going forward.
Yep.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that project has been delayed for so long. I know that
It only matters that it's completed within the next 3 years, because we're not going to really complete the site work until 3 years from now. So in the meantime, we have temporary construction for temporary parking that's alleviating the lost parking on the west side of the site. And that's just going to continue. In our meeting today with the owner and the district, they said that the temporary parking and the routes used to go in and out of the site were working very well with no incidents. And they're very happy with the temporary situation they have right now.
I didn't want to jump ahead to that, but since you brought it up, I was going to say, I mean, so we've had, week and a half of school. How have things gone so far? you know.
Well, the first few days were difficult. Number one, because they had split sessions for a couple of days. And so they weren't really getting the full blow of all the people arriving at the same time. They had a little bit of issue with people understanding the routes they had to take once they entered the site, how to enter the site, where to go once they got on the site. But after a week or so of that, they said it's moving along flawlessly. So we expect that for the next 2 years, they'll be using this route on the site, and with no problem.
And I see Rob's on the line. Any worse backups than normal, or does this seem acceptable for the next 2 years about how the traffic flow is going?
No, I was in the parking lot today, and like Joe said, things were moving along very well. And I think obviously, as time goes on, it'll just go smoother.
Yeah. Oh, it's good to hear. I saw that the old tennis courts got taken out on the east side there. And so is that what's happening to that slope on that part right there?
Where the tennis courts were is intended to be the new potable water wells that are going to supply the school. The existing well that's sitting under the oil tank in the boiler room can't be retained because it's conflicting with DEP regulations. It's in violation now. So we're providing new wells that we're working with DEP to arrange permitting for. We had a meeting with DEP just today to go through some of those issues with the permitting for those wells. That's where the new potable wells will be, is up on the tennis court, which is the reason we took those 3 tennis courts and rebuilt them new over by on the western corner of the site, over by the sewage treatment plant.
Yeah. And you guys have to, as for those wells, do you have to dig up the west side parking lot, or sorry, the east side parking lot at all?
No, that's basically staying. It's being rebuilt, but in the end, it will be in the same place basically that it is now.
Okay.
At least for the next 3 years.
Yeah. So Pam, sorry, just to jump back to the Haley Ward review. So the items that come out of this is just, have they all received a copy of this review?
Yes.
And so it's just kind of make the updates as needed, or anything.
Yeah, we'd probably like a response to the letter, and then I think we could probably move forward in drafting conditions if the board would like to move this along and approve the site plan.
You should have received a response by email yesterday afternoon.
No, I'm
If
sorry.
you haven't, please let us know.
I haven't.
We sent a response to all of the DEP and the peer review questions.
Through email?
Yep.
My email here, let me make sure. Yesterday?
Yes. Probably around 5 o'clock.
It was a download link.
Okay.
No, that was what you sent me today, Eric.
Okay,
right? But
yeah.
It was a download link.
Yes, sorry, I missed that. I haven't opened that yet.
Would you like us to go through our responses, or do you want to review them first yourselves and then we can review them again at the next meeting? What is your usual procedure?
There's quite a few attachments there. I think it's probably best if we take some time and go through them. And I can forward them along to Bethany for her review as well.
Okay.
In the interest of respecting everyone's time, we're okay with that. The attachments are just backup, and as Bethany said earlier, there's really nothing major in these comments that would require redesign. It's all just little things that we need to add into the plans.
Yeah. So the attachments is like a photometric plan to show the lighting and temporary parking plan that's in front of the school for the enabling portion of the work during construction, that she mentioned that she didn't see. Things like that we were putting in there just to enhance, the review
Yeah.
process.
The trash compactor, there's the permit for the sanitary treatment plant,
Mhm.
things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think if Pam and Bethany can review those, again, nothing jumped out at me from Haley Ward's review that was super concerning. So I think hopefully we can get that reviewed, and then and again, so Pam, the next step is, once we're satisfied with everything, is the board sets forth uh just conditions and approval.
Yes.
Okay. And so we are meeting again 28th,
25th
25th, 25th.
of September.
Yes. And is that good to review this then? I'm not sure how long that'll take. I know we have some other agenda items that night.
Yeah, we have quite a few. We have 3 public hearings on shade trees for under the scenic roads, and the common driveway for the South Bolton Road Martha subdivision.
Yeah. Is this holding you guys up at all?
Yes.
Um,
Yes, there's a new regulation with, I think I mentioned this last time, new regulation with National Grid, where they won't assign a work order number or a engineer to work on the project until after the planning board review is complete. And so the engineering that we have for our site work for electrical, for the location of the new transformer and underground duct banking and stuff like that, all of that is based on our best engineering practice, but it is not approved by National Grid. And I know that sounds silly, because they said that they don't want to do it twice. I guess it's okay if you guys have to review it twice, or we have to redraw it twice, but not for them. So their new regulation as of this year is that they will only assign someone to their project and after a planning board review is complete.
so Pam, let's go ahead and we'll fit them onto the agenda for the 25th.
Okay.
Some of those hearings should move pretty quickly. So hopefully it's not too long. But yeah, I do want to, get this wrapped up so you guys can get going on it.
Thank you. Hopefully
We
the
appreciate
answers are explanatory enough that and simple responses that we feel they are.
Yeah. Okay, great.
And could I ask if there's, I know if Ms. Harding, if there are any questions that you feel would expedite the process at the next meeting for you, just so that, you're not trying to, squeeze us in. If there's anything that you need, or if anything that that Bethany needs, would you be able to tell us beforehand, and we could be sure to forward that so the committee has it?
Yes, and part of your submission, did you provide a response letter to her comments?
Yes.
Okay.
And the DEP comments too. Yep.
Okay, great.
Mhm.
Yeah, so Pam, if you could, you can work directly with them to get further clarification. And hopefully we can get most of it wrapped up by the next meeting.
Right. Them do.
So
Anything else that of note since the school year started? That everything still seemed on schedule. I know the paving got finished there right at the last minute, which was great. Now we've had a unbelievably dry past couple weeks. I assume that's helped out with things. Any concerns about, if we get heavy storms, runoff from things, or things pretty well under control?
Things are pretty well under control. We had a couple storms right as we were starting to begin work, which was good because we got to see where the weak points were. They've made adjustments and they've been asked to make adjustments, and those have Well, it's not been raining, but they seem to be working before it stopped raining.
Okay. Anyone else have questions for the high school team? Oh, okay. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah,
Uh,
Thank you.
Mike,
Yeah. Oh, go
can
ahead.
we take a vote, please, to continue it to the September
Oh,
25th
sorry.
meeting?
Yeah.
That's okay.
I make a motion to continue the public meeting for the site plan review of 12 Green Road to the September 25th meeting.
Second.
Michael Gore,
Aye.
James Barr. I'm sorry, Jim, I didn't hear you. Can you affirm that again, please?
Aye.
Thank you. Robert Romer,
Aye.
Eric Nyland,
Aye.
Michael Lau.
Aye.
The meeting's continued to September 25th. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. See
Thank you
then.
very much. Bye-bye.
Next item on the agenda is an A&R for 141 Brown Road / Whitcomb Road, which straddles Harvard and Bolton.
One
Do we
second.
have someone representing the applicant?
I don't think so. Do you mind if we go out of order really quick and take
No, that's fine.
Forbush? Okay.
Yep.
I am here, Ryan Proctor, Dillison Roy. I'm representing Mr. Sperry for this A&R
Oh,
actually
okay.
as well.
Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and do that then.
Okay. Would you like me to share my screen? I can go over the A&R plan real quick if that'd
Sure.
be helpful.
Yeah,
That'd be
I
great.
have it too, but whatever is easiest.
Either way, if you could permit me to share, just says it's not allowed right now.
Oh, we should be all set.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I started out just on the locus map here, just to give the board an idea of where we are. We're on the southeast side of 495. Brown Road is located just over the line in Harvard, and then Whitcomb Road, of course, to the south. The property only has a small portion in the town of Bolton, and Mr. Sperry owns 2 parcels in the town of Harvard, which are identified by this lot line here. So I'll zoom out to the actual plan itself. So the 2 parcels is this rectangular parcel here. This is mostly within Harvard. There's a very small triangle within Bolton, and then the larger of the 2 parcels extends out. I'm just tracing it here with my cursor. Mr. Sperry applied for a building permit for a detached structure, and the town of Harvard requested that he prepare a lot consolidation plan, which is what is before your board. It has been endorsed by the Harvard Planning Board already. We are not creating any new lot lines. We are just combining the 2 parcels into one. And because part of it existed within the town of Bolton, Harvard recommended, and the attorneys recommended, that we have this plan endorsed by your board as well. I think that's all I need to say. That's all I have to say. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
I'm sorry, which parcel does that little wedge exist on right now?
So I believe there's
that
a portion
dotted-
of each parcel.
Just that one,
so,
okay. Literally
Yep.
just that one little dotted piece?
So this little triangle here, and then this piece as well, is also part of this bigger parcel. So there's a part of each of the 2 parcels that's within the town of Bolton. I can try to trace them. Oh, it's a scan, so I can't. So it's this triangle here is part of lot 3, which is this rectangle piece, and then parcel B, which I'm tracing here, is part of parcel C, which is this larger piece in the back.
And you are combining those 2 lots together? 3
That's correct.
3A, okay, yeah.
Yep, 3, B, and C.
I mean, I certainly don't see any issues with that, Pam. I know it's always weird when we have parcels that straddle town lines. So this will continue to straddle the town lines. It just will be one contiguous parcel.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have any issues. Pam, I assume you've looked at this and,
Yeah, actually, it could have probably been done through an 81X, but I was happy to bring it to the board for your vote that it doesn't require approval.
any questions from other members of the board?
No problem on my end.
None here.
Okay, then I will make a motion to approve the A&R for 141 Brown Road in Harvard and Whitcomb Road in Bolton.
Second.
Michael Gore,
Aye.
James Barr,
Aye.
Robert Romer,
Aye.
Eric Nyland,
Aye.
Michael Lau.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Okay, good to see you, Ryan. Next item of business is review the driveway permit for a shared driveway at 27 Forbush Mill Road.
This is Ryan Proctor again. I am representing Mr. Giotto in this application as well. I know, Pam, you had some comments that you issued earlier today. I don't know if you want to go through those first, or I'm happy to give an overview, whatever you prefer.
I'd like to just give a little history, Ryan, if you don't mind,
Sure.
because this
Nope.
is a formal filing. This plan was originally submitted as a special permit with a common driveway that serviced 3 house lots. However, our zoning bylaw requires that one of those house lots be a backland lot. And because there wasn't sufficient area to accommodate that provision, the applicant submitted the plan before you, which is technically a driveway, 2 abutting driveways. One is a shared driveway, which services 2 house lots, and then the other is an individual driveway, which services the 3rd house lot, which is why you see them straddle along the frontage between lot line 2 and 3 down here on Forbush Mill Road. So the driveway this meets the bylaw. The bylaw requires that the driveway be located on the frontage on the lot it services. So this accommodation for the driveways along Forbush Mill Road does satisfy the zoning bylaw. However, it did result in a 25-foot driveway width, which is, as you know, as wide as a roadway. So we bought the plan before you because you do have authority to review all driveway permits at a public meeting, and I did have some comments I can mention to the board if it's okay with the chair.
Go ahead, Pam.
No, I realize this is not technically a common driveway. I thought the comments would be relevant. I'm going to bring up my Word document here. We don't have a minimum driveway width if it's not a common driveway, but I thought that 20 feet, 2 10-foot driveways abutting each other with no barrier in between was a bit too wider than necessary. So I reduced it down to 16 feet. That's probably the minimum that can accommodate two-way traffic, but I certainly leave that up to the board for further discussion. I also suggested that with that reduced width, that all 3 lots be required to enter into a operation and maintenance plan, which clearly outlines the long-term maintenance and plowing of the driveway and defines the limits of what each owner is responsible for. There's this had to go before the Conservation Commission as well, and they had to do some stormwater design, and that required an operation and maintenance plan. However, it didn't seem to incorporate maintenance of the culvert with the associated outlet and the detention pond, so I requested that be incorporated to the O&M plan. Also, there's no drainage easement around the stormwater treatment area, so I requested that be added to the plan to ensure lots 1 and 2 also have access to the drainage structures that are located on lot 3. And then just a requirement that they all be recorded at the registry, the easement plans and the O&M plans. And then also it's always beneficial for the purchasers of the lots that, the easements for the shared driveways and stormwater facilities be referenced in the deed. So that referencing both the plan and the long-term maintenance documents, which should also be recorded at the registry. I wasn't sure if there were any, public shade trees which required removal with the driveway construction. So just a note as an FYI, if there are trees, Forbush Mill Road is a scenic road, and if trees require removal within a public way, we will require another hearing. I didn't see any meets or bounds out there to identify that, so it was kind of difficult to tell if that was a requirement or not. And then I just suggest a construction entrance be installed at the curb cut off the public way when construction starts. And then directional signage is shown at the entrance to the driveway off of Forbush Mill Road, but I also suggested it be installed with directional signage for the house numbers at all forks in the driveway, and there are 2 forks on lot 2, so we suggest signage be located on both of those forks. And then just a condition that all the documents be submitted to the planning office for approval prior to the issuance of building permits.
Okay, so just for a bit of an overview here. So this is effectively the applicant wanted a common driveway, but our bylaws don't allow that because one of the lots had to be a backland lot, which is 4.5 acres or so. And so to get around that, what they've done is create one shared driveway and one individual driveway, but they were combined as one mega driveway, which I don't think is what anybody wants. That obviously was not the intention of the bylaw. Maybe Eric or Bob, I don't know if either of you know what the intention of the backland lot as requirement for the common driveway was. Maybe that's just to reduce the number of possible lots
Yes.
they could have on it.
I don't even remember this ever coming up. Like,
Mhm.
for instance, like on Main Street, there next to the Bolton Bean, there's backland lots in there on that common driveway, isn't there?
There is a backland lot.
There's one
Right.
backland lot, so it
Yeah,
has to
that's
be
the
a backland
point.
lot.
There has to be a backland lot,
Okay,
right?
yeah,
So I
okay.
mean,
Yeah,
to me,
unless it's enough, I'm sorry, they are allowing phosphors without one being a backland lot, so that allows a little more leniency if the common driveway is located within the phosphor subdivision.
yeah, and that makes sense because it's a subdivision. So, but in this case, our bylaws had the unfortunate side effect of creating kind of this, someone trying to get around the bylaw by having this one massive driveway. So setting aside what Pam has put out there, which looks reasonable to me, as a board, we probably need to discuss, does that bylaw need to be amended somehow? If we had language in there that said at the discretion of the planning board or some such thing. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's for another night. But
Yeah,
so
I
Pam,
don't see why, combining up driveways, I think, is beneficial to the town. And
Yeah, I do.
yeah, so
but
I don't
if the
s-
purpose of it is to restrict the number of houses you can build on it, so I could see someone saying, well, with the backland lot requirement, you can only get 3 houses if otherwise they could build 5. What is to trigger subdivision? 6 more?
yeah.
I suspect it was because
Subdivision
of,
is triggered by the construction of a road. We allow common driveways up to 5.
Right, so it's 6
up
or
to
more.
5. Yeah. So right, someone who had only enough land for 3 houses, well, let's say 5 houses, but they could only build 3 with this because one of them had to be a backland lot. I would suspect that was the intention of the original bylaw, which, I mean, I don't love that as, as someone who wants to see more housing. I don't like that bylaw, but that's really for a different time. We'd have to understand what the thought process was as to
I mean,
why
but
that
like
requirement was put in there.
frontage wise, it's 50 feet versus 200 feet. So I would think that with the backland lot, you could squeeze more in.
No, because you've got one
I know
lot
it's
has
more,
to be
it's 4.5 acres. I understand it's more acreage. but-
Yeah, and in this case, the applicant doesn't have, it's not like the applicant has a ton of land to work with. They have a limited amount of land, and that wouldn't qualify
Yeah.
for it. So, I mean, at a minimum, we would want to have some language in there that gives the planning board discretion in case of this, because obviously we don't want the unintended side effect of having one massive driveway right there.
Right.
But like, if we want to preserve well, you can only have 3 houses rather than 5. I don't know. That's probably a discussion that we should take up at a different time. So to go back to Pam's document. So Pam, what is right now the proposed width is 20 feet?
Yeah, the
And your
proposed width
recommend,
is 20. I just threw 16 out there. Our common driveway actually allows for a minimum width of 12 feet. So it's up to the board's discretion. It's just gonna have to be, I picked 16 because 8 is a car width, so technically it's 2 driveways that have to be straddled on a lot line. So I picked 16 because 8 was the minimum 2 driveways.
is the intention to treat them as 2 separate driveways still?
Well, technically, to meet the bylaw, we have to consider it as 2, but there is no minimum driveway width.
I see.
So
Um,
it seems to me, even going to 16 feet, we're still effectively to meet regulations as we modify them. We're creating a street, not a driveway. If 12 is a good rationale for 2 cars, one of them pulling off slightly, getting by each other, why shouldn't we just leave it at 12?
You
So
can,
this
my
is the
thought,
bylaw, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like, we can't waive bylaws.
yeah,
Right.
I think
we're
they're getting
we're
around it.
working around a bylaw here, I think
Yeah.
is what, so Pam's trying to find a creative way. So before we do anything else, so Ryan, you have any thoughts on what's being proposed here? Or what the applicant wants to see done?
Yeah, so I mean, we'd be open to potentially reducing the width. We had chosen the 20-foot wide. I think if we were drawing a standard single lot driveway, we wouldn't put it typically less than 10 feet wide when we show it on one of our plans. So that's why we had gone with the 20 feet total, 10 for the shared driveway portion, 10 for the single. So that's how we got to that number. But I can certainly discuss with the applicant reducing that width. It would be less disturbance on the site. So we could look
I mean,
at that.
it's less pavement for you. I mean, I
Right.
think because we're effectively working around a bylaw here, I mean, Pam, as long as everything that we're doing is kind of on the up and up, then I would say if we can reduce the width to whatever's the minimum possible, I mean, I'm fine with 12.
yeah, it's a little tricky just because you can't justify a 6-foot wide driveway on lot 3 as but it doesn't have to be paved either. It can be just cleared flat area. There's nothing in the bylaw or regulations which requires pavement. So we could
if you
do
had
12 feet of paved width with shoulders.
yeah. I mean, so Ryan, I think at the end of the day, we want to work with you and the applicant. And I mean, I don't know what the timeline is for this project. I mean, I would certainly be willing to look into amending that bylaw at the next town meeting, but obviously I can't guarantee anything with that.
Right.
But if we could do something to, again, as long as I like Pam, I love that idea of having, gravel shoulder or something like that, that's flat area. Um, but I think Ryan, we want to work with you guys to, you know, limit your costs and not have a giant, monstrosity of a road right there. I think that's only going to confuse people. Sorry, is this on the western side of Forbush, so the side with the transfer station, or is it on
It's the
the
side of the
eastern
transfer
side?
station. It's
Okay.
just uphill of the fire pond, and it's adjacent to the Nalt's liquor store. That parking lot,
Yep.
it's adjacent to that,
Okay.
to the left of that, if you're looking at the site.
Okay. Um, and Pam, I'm trying to picture what that land looks like. Is that going uphill?
Yeah,
Is
it's
there,
going uphill.
okay. So I imagine reducing the impervious amount of that driveway helps with your stormwater stuff also.
Yes, yeah, and with the shared driveway and with conservation, we weren't required by the stormwater standards to meet stormwater, but we did provide some on the upgrading side of the driveway and along the slopes as well. But yes, that would be helpful, of course, reducing the impervious on the site.
Yeah.
I have
Oh,
some
go ahead, Eric.
questions actually. So I don't know if you could put the plan back up.
Sure.
So the lots, the houses are in the residential zone and the lots are taking up the business zone. So does that take away buildable business zone? Can they reuse that square footage for business zone? The acreage. So if you look at like the upper two lots, I mean, they're in the business zone there, and the houses are just over the residential line. So
Mhm.
how does that impact the business zone, knowing that we had just gone through the master plan steering committee and that one of the high priority areas was kind of this corner for a potential business zone area? Does this take away potential, overall footage of a business zone?
Yes, but he's,
So what does it take away? So basically
I-
what we see carved out of lots. I guess my question is, how can they use the business zone as required acreage or even frontage in business zone for residential? I guess the house is in the residential.
right.
You're asking a question separate from the driveway, right, Eric? You're just saying,
Yes.
Mhm.
how are they straddling two zones?
Yeah, exactly. And what's the impact to the business zone?
You
So
can, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So all this area that we see carved out in these lots can no longer be used towards the based footage of business development.
Well, they'd be, not with the single family house development, they would need that area and frontage for the building of the single family homes.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I think the question is they are allowed to do this because it's a split zone, right?
Right.
Like this, they are allowed to do this.
Because
And the only reason that they're here tonight is because we do have purview over shared driveways. Like that's,
yeah,
if they were just building two lots, they don't, that's an A&R. They don't, they can
yeah.
do
I
it.
mean, I'm just trying to understand the impact of it. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that we can vote it down. I just want to understand the impact. So whatever percentage of land this is, that's, that reduces the percentage of business development. Correct.
On that parcel, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
yeah, in that area. I mean, that's an area where we really wanted to look at, as Eric said,
Exactly.
to another, I mean, and across the street with the DPW, there are a lot of ideas about how that whole section down the street from the high school at Forbush Mill could become another little center for an integrated business area. And now we're
Do we
taking.
know, yeah, what percentage does this carve out of that lot of business development?
I didn't calculate the square footage.
Yeah. Yeah, I
of
mean,
the,
unfortunately, I think, yeah, I guess, I mean, we are where we are right now, but I know many, a few years ago, we tried to like get rid of these split lots. But now it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, this discussion with Ryan is not really
No,
about
I know.
that. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying.
I'm talking about a
I,
more general planning,
yep,
future
yep,
planning
no,
thing.
no,
Yeah,
I understand it.
yeah,
But the fact is that they have, he has the right to build
yep,
on these lots.
yeah, sure.
So did you have questions or comments related to the driveway?
I mean, I think if we, as much as we can shrink it down as possible, if it's going to happen, whatever we can get away with, shrinking it down as
Yeah.
much as possible.
So Pam, if you can, kind of figure out whatever, make sure that we're covered by whatever conditions you put in there. Ryan, if you can go back to the applicant and, talk about some of the requests. And aside from the width of the recommended width, and again, we would like to make that as small as possible as paved area. Are there any other, any of the other conditions concerning for you regarding the O&M, anything like that?
No, I think that's pretty boilerplate for any shared driveway. I think that easement language, that would be documented either on the A&R plan for the lots or in an 81X plan. And then an operation and maintenance plan was a condition of approval from the Conservation Commission. So we have that prepared already, and those edits that Pam suggested, I think are reasonable and appropriate. So that's not an issue. And then we can certainly add the construction entrance to the site plan. That's the light lift. And then I believe we do have the directional signage at all the turns already.
oh, okay, I'm sorry if I missed
Yeah,
that.
no, totally fine. So that's detailed on the second sheet of the site plans, but
Oh.
everything else in there in that comments, I don't think we'd have any objection to.
Okay.
One quick engineering question. Ryan, what's the grade on either side of that cut?
The pitch of the slope, you mean?
Yeah,
I believe it's 2-to-1 on the downhill side, 3-to-1 on the uphill side.
okay. I was just channeling Meadow Road at the moment. Sorry.
Yep.
Okay, so Pam, as far as tonight, do you want us to take a vote on this, or do you want to see what you feel that we, can legally and ethically get away with on the terms and conditions? How do you want to proceed? I mean, in general, if we can empower you to, I mean, the minimum it can be is 10 feet, right? 10 feet of paved, that's our minimum requirement, or I'm sorry,
Well,
you say 8?
Well,
12, we don't have a minimum for a shared or single driveway.
Okay,
A parking space is 9 typically. You can get away with 8 for compact cars. But the common driveway minimum width is 12 feet.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you need, I mean, again, I think we're all in agreement, 12 feet. Do you want us to take a vote on that and these terms and conditions and just let you guys work on this offline? What's the best way to handle this?
I mean, so one thing with, so 12 feet, but also we have, I don't know what the length of this is, but I know we have, pull-offs for emergent, for cars to get by. And there's, turnarounds for emergency vehicles and common driveways. I mean, there's a lot of other things with common driveways. I don't know if we want to look into that or not. I don't know. Maybe, and it's not a common driveway, so.
Yeah,
Right.
it's not a common
Yeah.
driveway.
But I don't know if like you're reducing as much as possible. Maybe they should add in pull off. I don't know.
No, I mean, I agree. I think a pull off would be useful for,
But I don't think it's maybe in this situation, I don't know that it's something. we could ask
If it
for.
goes to a minimum width of 12 feet, I think it would be beneficial to have a turnaround.
A turnaround or a pullover?
But
Hmm.
we required turnarounds for common driveways.
Right. But this isn't a common driveway.
Right, right.
That's right. It's like a caught in a pickle.
We can take a look at the site plan for that. The length of the driveway to the first split is about 350 feet. So it's not a super long run. I think for common driveways, the turnout spacing is 300 feet. It's pretty flat down by the road. We have 1% coming down towards Forbush. So there is adequate space there, especially if we are reducing the pavement for a turnout to get vehicles around. Especially if we have some sort of unpaved shoulder. But
Yeah, if they have
we
a
can definitely
shoulder,
look at
I
that.
think you may not need a turn out, so a pullover spot if we do have unpaved shoulders.
Yeah, how well is that maintained? Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, if it's just gravel, I mean, again,
I mean, when it comes to common driveways with 3 to 5 houses, we start having all these just for safety. You know, can emergency vehicles get by? Different things like that. You know.
well, and I mean
Fire truck get-
the pull-offs are important because
Yeah.
typically, developers want to make the driveway be as narrow as possible to save costs
Right.
on paving, and that
Yep.
you run into problems when multiple
Right.
vehicles are coming and
Yep.
going. The fact that and this is where I feel like the bylaw, the planning board could have a little bit more,
Discretion.
leeway, discretion. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. To say, hey, does it make sense in this particular spot? So I mean, I think if the final plan is to have kind of unpaved shoulder on either side, then that, you don't need the turnout and pullover as much. As far as a turnaround goes, I don't know. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
My gut feeling would be to not require that because that adds a lot of extra impervious
Yeah, I
to
agree.
it. I mean, but from a safety point of view, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. That's how I feel. I don't know.
I don't know. So Pam, what do you feel the next steps are here?
I think, Ryan, would it be beneficial to discuss the reduced width with your client and talk about shoulders?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay, I think what everyone agreed on was a 12-foot width for the driveway with a minimum of 2 feet of kind of level shoulder width on each side. This way we can justify that it can act as a separate
Yeah, so
driveway,
16.
one shared and one individual.
Okay, so just to confirm, just to make sure, the 12 feet would be the total pavement width across the shared and single driveway that are adjacent.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's what the board agreed to.
Okay, that's how I understood
Through
it. I
the
just wanted to
discussion, yeah.
confirm. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
I mean, so by doing this, I mean, we're just creating a loophole in our bylaws. So
Like I said, I mean, I
Yeah.
think we should. It's our bylaw that created this problem.
yeah, no, I agree. So all I'm saying is just let's clean it up either way.
Yes, 100%. Okay, so Pam, I don't know if you and Ryan can work this out offline, or if you need to come back to another meeting.
It
You
should
are-
probably go to you for vote, at least with those. Are you amenable to all the other conditions, Ryan?
All the conditions relative to the operation and maintenance, yeah, we're amendable to
Okay,
that.
so I would suggest you approve it with those conditions with amending condition 1, which allows the applicant flexibility to narrow the driveway to 12 feet and paved width with 2-foot shoulders on either side after discussion with his client.
You bring up that your document again, Pam?
Sure.
I mean, it's definitely a good solution and it helps stormwater, reduces impervious.
Yep.
Cost less.
I will make a motion to approve the conditions set forth by the town planner for the shared driveway application for 27 Bush Mill Road with the width of the paved area of the driveway reduced to 12 feet and a 2-foot flat shoulder unpaved on either side of the driveway.
Second.
Second.
Michael Gore,
Aye.
James Barr,
Aye.
Robert Romer,
Aye.
Eric Nyland,
Aye.
Michael Lau.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Good. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Okay, have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
Take care.
Next item of business is update from Pam on the housing bond bill for accessory dwelling units.
Let me pull up. I don't know if many of you have heard the discussion. The state recently been a,
Love ADUs. I'll even give the overview. So a couple years ago,
okay.
we did Bolton passed an a detached ADU bylaw, and we've had at least one person, maybe 2 people use it up until this point. ADUs are a great use of extra space. Again, give for additional housing if you want to rent out your existing house and live in a smaller house, or have, in-laws or someone else move into the ADU. And so this year in the legislative session, Massachusetts, now correct me if I'm wrong here, Massachusetts made that detached ADUs by right. Okay, I'll let you do the rest.
Okay. Yeah, they passed a new definition of accessory dwelling units. It allows them either attached or detached in the single family residential zone, accessory to a single family house by right. There is a size restriction on that, which we have to accept, and that is 900 square feet or half the gross floor area of the home, whichever is smaller. Our bylaw currently allows for a greater size than that. So what we have to do is accept this new definition, which is effective immediately by the state, and allow all units up to 900 square feet by right. If the board chooses, we can allow additional square footage either by right or by special permit, but we have to create a different definition in excess of the 900 square feet. They also took away the owner occupancy requirement, so we can no longer require that an owner reside in the accessory dwelling or the single family home.
So if it's 900 or less by right, but then 900 to 1200, our bylaw would kick in?
If that's the way we choose to move forward and amend our bylaw, this is actually effective. The definition is effective immediately. The rest of the bylaw, which incorporates the owner occupancy restrictions and that type of thing, is effective February 5th.
So, or you're saying that we could adjust our bylaws just to make 1200 by right?
We have to, our accessory dwelling unit has to have the state definition. So we can create another accessory dwelling unit, like, and just name it something else, like larger
ADU
accessory
plus.
dwelling units or
ADU
something
max,
like that.
Plus.
ADU Pro. How's that?
Super size.
Yeah.
Right.
Would you like to
So
supersize that accessory dwelling unit?
Is it 12? It's 1200 today is our current max.
We have a third we restrict it to with the square footage.
But I thought we don't cap the max on it.
I thought we
thought we
said
did.
1,200 or half, whatever's smaller.
Yeah.
Maybe. I forget exactly.
I couldn't find the 1,200 in there, but
If only this was here a few years ago, I wouldn't have been in a lawsuit.
why, what? I'm not
Well,
familiar.
I think that one was bigger than 900 square feet.
Oh, I don't know. Bolton history.
I mean, if that one, our detached ADU bylaw would have covered that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Or the,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that would have been bigger than 900.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
So, okay, so this, Pam, what do you want to do tonight on this?
It's just an FYI.
Okay,
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
also, so we're gonna have to propose amendments to our bylaw regarding the ADUs at town meeting, and we're gonna have to decide what we want to do for units that are in excess of 900 square feet.
Planning board's gonna be back in action.
I mean, yeah, I'm fine, you know, if we cap it at some. Let's see what we have today. Maybe we don't want to do it by right. I don't know. I mean, I would, but
Just
I don't know.
just
maybe it's
keep.
fluff.
Oh, what do we? Oh, that's the.
See,
I forget
mean,
what
right,
ours is.
right now. We're by special permit. They
Yeah.
have to come before the board and
So if it's
prove all the
900, I
stuff.
mean, the easiest thing to do would just be if it's 900 and under, whatever it's by right, do the state. If it's bigger and fits into our bylaw, then just keep the special permit. I don't know. I guess we have to call it something different, but
Yeah, it's
De-
a
I think
special
that
detached-
makes perfect sense.
Detached, we're maxed at 1,200 square feet, but attached, there, it's just based on the gross floor area of the home. There's no max to it.
Do we have to do anything for the attached bylaw?
Yeah, we're gonna have to
We
take
do,
it
right?
out as
Because
special,
okay,
yeah,
yeah.
There are a
Okay.
few things. You can still allow site plan review. You cannot allow the special permit requirement. They did incorporate some changes which allows you to permit more than one accessory dwelling unit by special permit. But I don't think many communities are looking into that.
Seems unlikely, yeah. Sorry, you can't require the special permit for what? As long as it's under 900 square feet?
You can't
Or-
require a special permit for any accessory dwelling unit 900 square feet or smaller.
Oh, yeah,
But-
yeah.
but
Like, it
bigger.
would still be special permit if it were
Yeah,
over 900 square
You
feet.
can choose to do it by special permit over. Yep.
I see. Okay.
And you can require, if it's detached and under 900 square feet, you can require site plan. You just can't require the special permit.
And who does that? Us?
Yeah, it's however we amend the bylaw to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know you want to. You haven't reviewed them at all so far.
I don't want to, and I think the building inspector probably reviews something like that, right? Today?
So those are just things to consider, whether we want to,
Okay.
what size we want to allow up to, whether we want site plan review. And then if we want to keep detached over 900 square feet by special permit.
And so either way, you said that this kicks in February, so we need to have this on the Springtown meeting, right?
Yeah, in May. No one is expected to hold a special town meeting, but if an accessory apartment comes in under 900 square feet, we have to allow it.
Okay.
Because the definition is immediately enforced.
Nope, it's good to me.
And I don't know how familiar the board is with lot mergers and after zone changes. But this, if historically, if you held two lots in common ownership that conformed to zoning when they were created, and then there was a zone change to increase lot size, and those lots remained in common ownership 3 years after the zone change. They were considered merged, and you no longer had two buildable lots, or however many were held in common ownership. They have actually changed that provision, and they are the lots will be grandfathered in even if they are in common ownership. However, there's a minimum frontage and lot size requirement associated with that, and the home cannot exceed 1,850 square feet.
Are you still talking about the detached?
No, I'm talking about the lot merger amendment. That was part
Oh.
of the housing bill.
Oh. I didn't read that one. Does that?
Yeah, I don't know that how much of it. We had a zone change, I think, in 1973 when we went from 1.5 acres to 2. So there may be a few that it may pertain to, but I don't think there's too many in Bolton.
Okay. Okay. Anything else on that one?
No, and then the other provision was that we can give veterans housing preference for affordable housing units. And there was also amendments to the appeal process that petitioner plaintiffs can be held financially responsible for appealing decisions of the board that holds development up for no legitimate reason as determined by the court.
I'm sorry, you said that they can hold the board.
Or not the board, but plaintiffs that appeal approvals that go to the court can now be held financially responsible for any hardships that they cause to the defendant.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. So if say an abutter appeals a subdivision and it goes to court, the judge can rule that they didn't really have good reason for that appeal and hold them financially responsible for the delays that the developer may have and financial hardships that the developer may have experienced due to their appeal.
And would that go to the town or the party that put in the appeal?
No, it goes to the defendant.
Second time your lawsuit makes an appearance tonight, Eric.
Wasn't me.
So I think there were a lot of abutters appealing decisions just to hold development up, and
Yeah.
resulted in some financial issues, which prevented construction from going forward. And so now they run a risk of being held liable for those financial hardships.
Wow, there's going to be a whole legal practice work on that one.
Now, does that include the town? But
I don't believe so.
like-
I think towns are exempt from
okay.
that. Yeah.
And start seeing those commercials on late at night.
Okay. Anything else on the housing bill, Pam?
No, that was the bulk of it.
Okay. Yep. So we'll start. Maybe if you could send out the language around the existing ADU bylaw, we can figure out what we need to change.
Sure.
The next item of business was approval of minutes, but I don't think we have those yet. Is that correct?
Did I send them May?
I didn't see them in the packet. Did you
Okay.
send them separately?
I'll send them for the next meeting. I don't.
Okay, that's fine.
They were done, but I didn't send them.
All right. Any other topics to talk about tonight?
But just going back for a minute to what Eric was talking about with the intersection of Green, Main, and Forbush, and the possibility of looking more at planned commercial space there. I think it might be worthwhile to get the information we need about the zone, the ownership, and do what amounts to a streamlined focused area assessment, the way we did it, the southwest corner of 495 and 117, just to get our heads around what could be put there and what we ought to think about possibly in rezoning.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna, that, now that we have the master plan coming to a conclusion and understanding what zones the public are interested in being business, those priority zones especially, we should look at, all this crazy split zoning and stuff we have, and the future, whatever future we want to go, we need to preserve these, if it's business zone or residential, we need to clearly state it, because now we're losing some portion of what we potentially want to develop.
And that was, it's kind of sad to see something that was made a perfect location for business now being eaten up by residences.
Right, exactly. And I didn't see the size of the houses or anything, but they're probably 4-bedroom colonial houses that, so it's just more of what we have, which is fine, can be done, but.
No, it's not.
To be fair, I don't know how great that spot would have been for business. I mean, you would have to clear cut all of those trees to do anything there. And if it's going uphill, that's probably not a great spot. I mean, when we talk about Forbush, I think we think
Well,
more
but the
of
problem is, yeah, sure, that specific spot, but we lose that acreage that goes
Yep.
towards how many square feet of building there could be,
yeah.
even if it's up front. So
Well-
we just lose the potential of the land for business zone.
No, and I'm not supposing anything. I think it's worthwhile to look at the topography, look at the zoning, figure out how it all fits together. Because I really don't understand it. I mean, I can look at the separate maps and separate ownership, but it's very hard to do that. And
Yeah, I mean, now that we kind of have a direction and we have a framework from master plan, it's time for us to dig in and look at the implementation table and the zones and start to plan.
Moving the DPW, right? Isn't that what we're doing?
well, and that's
Like
one of
that.
the things that was
That's-
discussed.
Yeah. No.
They'd love to move, but where to?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big chess game.
I mean,
Okay,
we
yeah.
have
So yeah, but I fully agree that that is the best spot for some sort of retail business development right there. So
Anyway,
I'm fully on board with that.
we just need to know more.
Yeah. Anything else anyone wants to discuss?
Nope.
Oh, okay. If not, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right.
Okay, thanks everyone. We'll see you on the 25th. Thank you, Pam. We'll talk
Thank
later on.
you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hope you feel
Bye.
better, Mike.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks,
Okay,
everybody.
bye.
Thanks.